I would invite my colleague Raghav for the community standard session. Raghav, thank you.
If not, I would request somebody from the team to unmute and tell me so. Thank you so much. I wish I could have been there. But due to certain unavoidable circumstances, I'm not there right now. But I'm looking forward to spending the next 40 to 50 minutes or so explaining about our community standards and our content policies and how we moderate them. Let me share my screen and take it along. Okay, great. So you might have heard this word called community standard quite a bit. Let us see how best to understand this. So this particular URL, if you go online, transparency.fb.com, you will see our community standards. So what are our community standards? So these are the rules and the policies that decide what we allow or do not allow on Facebook and Instagram. And you will see that here you have a number of topics that we covered. This is broadly, we have about 4 buckets here: violence and criminal behavior, safety, integrity and authenticity, objectionable content, and we have a number of policies here. This is not exhaustive. We've taken a few things that we thought would be useful for the team here. Violence and incitement, dangerous individuals and organizations, misinformation, hate speech, bullying and harassment, child sexual exploitation, privacy. These are some of the topics that we covered in our policies. Now, it is important to understand that here that these policies are global. This is one global set of policies. This is advantages as well as there are some challenges here. So let's see what the challenge is. For instance, when you take our nudity policy, for instance, we get feedback from our Nordic and European countries that our policies are rather restrictive on what we see as nudity content. Whereas when we see South Asia, we get feedback that we are not restricting enough content that what is perceived as indecent. So we are basically trying to balance about over 3.5 billion people views on what is violating, what is not violating, what is decent and what is not, and what should be allowed and what shouldn't be. And that's where our primary challenge is. But one thing to understand is whether you're in Kiev, or in the US, or in Nepal, or in Australia, the content that is posted is being governed by one set of policies. Here, before getting into the policies per se, we would like to give you an understanding of how our minds work. How is the mind of the policy team working, and what are some of the principles that we use to create these policies? 3 main buckets. The first, I would say, the operating principle that we think about is that our policies need to be principled. That is, our mission is to build community and bring people together. So if we want to restrict voice and we want to remove a certain content, then we need to be clear that it is rooted in certain set of principles. Now, what are these principles or values that we are talking about? These are those principles and values. The first one, as you would see here, is voice. This are platforms. Meta platforms are a place for expression. We want to give people voice, enable discussion, and build community. Now, this is in constant tension with our other values, which is privacy, safety, authenticity, and dignity. These are rather self-explanatory, but let me pause a little bit on each of this to see where the tension lies. Privacy, we are committed to protecting personal privacy and information. Now, this can come in the way of people expressing certain things. So that is the tension that we deal with. Safety, expression that there is certain kind of expression that can intimidate or silence others, right? And it actually goes against our value of voice. So this is one of the most difficult tensions that our policies try to navigate. We will see that when we go into certain specific policies, and I will give you examples. Authenticity and authentic environment is obviously better. We want our youth to be authentic, and dignity, all people are equal in dignity and rights. And if this comes in tension with voice, there are some policies that we use to remove such harm. Right, so we now know what the basic principles are of what we deal with in terms of making our policies. The second is operable. So, as we said, we are dealing with about 3.6 billion people, moderated by tens of thousands of reviewers throughout the world. And they belong to different cultures, different geographies, different languages. It is very easy for the policy team to do a very thorough academic, research-oriented analysis and clear policies. But how to make policies that can be at scale, that can equally be applied by reviewers all over the world on very, very different kinds of content? That is something that we keep in mind. Basically, how reviewers can apply content in a way that is consistent and fair. The third operating principle that we have to think that is that it should be explicable. Someone who is not a policymaker should be able to understand, because who are these policies targeted at? It is our everyday user. We need to be able to understand this. Our stakeholders should be able to understand this, and our reviewers should be able to understand this. So this is the check that we do every time that we create a policy. Is it rooted in our principles? Are they operable at scale? And are they explicable fairly and easily? Before we dive into certain sets of policies, especially because this is in the context of elections, there is something that I would like to make clear here. That our policies, again, are written in a way that is to facilitate open discussion and enable dialogue. So that would broadly mean three things. So if you ever wonder why a certain piece of content has not been removed from Facebook or Instagram, but you think that should not be there, my guess is it is in one of these three buckets. The first one is that we allow people to challenge ideas, institutions, and practices, and discuss concepts, and talk about them in different ways. The second, we allow discussion of people who are featured in the news or who have a large public audience. In other words, public figures. Public figures, in some cases, don't have the kind of protection that other citizens do, and we will talk about it, how exactly that manifests in terms of our policy. And number three, we allow a lot of things in the context of raising awareness or educating others that we would otherwise not do. So just keep this in mind as we deep dive into certain policies, and this is to facilitate open discussion. Right. So one warning. I know this is one of the last sessions of the day, and it will be important for us to go through certain examples and not just talk about policies. And I don't think we'll appreciate that much. And these examples will involve some explicit content. There are no explicit images, but there might be certain words and phrases and possibly curse words that might trigger people. One warning about that. Okay, the first policy that we are trying to get into is hate speech, widely contested. A lot of disagreement here on what should be allowed or not. The reason for the discontentment and the argument around hate speech is simple. There is no global consensus on what hate speech is, right? But let me make this clear. We do not allow hate speech on Facebook or Meta platforms because it creates an environment of segregation and exclusion and does not allow other users to use voice as much. Now, how do we define hate speech? We define hate speech. You can see the line that is bolded as a direct attack on people based on what we call as protected characteristics. The two operational or other operative words here are attack and protected characteristics. And we will see what these two mean in a few minutes. I will repeat. We define hate speech as a direct attack on people based on what we call as protected characteristics. Right. So what do we mean by protected characteristics? So this is an exhaustive list of what we mean by protected characteristics: race, ethnicity, national origin, religious affiliation, disability, serious disease, sexual orientation, sex, gender or gender identity, and caste. So if anyone, individual or group is attacked based on any of these, we consider this as hate speech and hate. Now, the other operative word in that definition is what is attack? Again, it's a word that is battered about very easily. This person attacked me, that I attacked them, but how exactly do we, in a way, qualify or quantify it? We see three tiers. We see some examples that will make it easier for you. What we take most seriously are, of course, calls to violence and dehumanization. When there's a call to violence or there's something that is dehumanizes somebody based on the protected characteristics, we take it very seriously. Tier 2 are statements of inferiority, statements of content, statements of disgust, and again, not just about a person, but a person based on their religion or caste or gender or sexual orientation or one of those. Tier 3, these are calls for exclusion or segregation. We also take that as attack. Now let's see some examples. This will make it clearer. Again, another warning that might be certain disturbing text. Let's look at tier 1. The first example that you see on the left says we should fly over the state and bomb all Americans to death. Now this is a very clear call to violence, and is it a call to violence on somebody based on a protected characteristic? Yes, American because of nationality, so we will not allow. This will be removed. The second example on the bottom, what does it say? It says women are laundry machines, leave your dirty clothes with them. Now what does this do? This compares women to machines. This is dehumanization. We do not allow this. Again, what is the protected characteristic that we use here? It is gender. Let's look at tier 2. This gets a little interesting and tricky, and for those of you who are particularly interested in content policy, the very interesting one. The first one says Afghans are so much better than Why did we remove this? We removed this because it is a statement of inferiority. And it attacks a group of individuals based on their nationality, which is protected caste. But if it had said Afghanistan is so much better than India, we would not have removed it because it is not an attack on a group of individuals, but it is discussion of a concept, which is a country, and that would be allowed. The second example here too is I'm a proud homophobic. Again, this is a statement of inferiority. It's not a direct attack. That is what is interesting here. But I'm a proud homophobic. Basically, it's a statement of inferiority towards people of a certain sexual orientation. The last one, tier 3. Would say girls should be kicked out of school. Why is this violated? Why is it not allowed? Why is this hate speech? This is a call to exclude a certain set of people based on protected characteristics. That is gender here. Girls should be kicked out of school. Girls, right? So it can be rather overwhelming to see all this in one go, and you'll see 2 or 3 more policies. So please don't worry about understanding everything right now. This session is for you to get a flavor of the kind of content that we allow and do not allow. Most of what we are talking about here is going to be there in the Transparency Center in the Community Standards page. So all you have to do is to look for that. Everything is going to be there. Maybe some examples that we have here will not be there. But if you're not sure why something is removed, or if you're not sure why something is not removed, your answer is in the answer. So some of the other considerations we spoke about some of these already that we allow for speech as critical institutions and practices. We think this is important. This fosters dialogue, discussion, and this is allowed. Second, some people share content like hate speech to raise awareness. For instance, I might want to say that a certain political figure said something awful, and then I post it on Facebook. Is that allowed? It is, because it is in an awareness. Number 3, you might have noticed that migrants, asylum seekers, refugees, and immigrants were not in the list of protected classes, but they also have a level of protection from hate speech. Some more examples. Again, a quick warning. The first one on the left. Country A people are lazy slaves. Now, is this an attack on a group of people? Yes, it is, and so we are going. Whereas on the right, you say, it says country A is less of country. As we saw, we can talk about country, but not about citizens, and that is it. The one on the left again, on the bottom, people of a certain religion are thieves and murderers. Is this hate speech? I don't think I have to explain this. Yes, it is hate speech. On the right bottom is a very interesting post. You should get a lot of this. It basically shows an individual throwing religious symbols into a dustbin. Now, is this hate speech? According to our definition, it is not, because we are not talking about people. The symbol is talking about concepts and institutions. In this case, it is a religion which people allow. Great. So that is hate speech. Exciting. And that is, the next one is bullying and harassment. Very connected to our hate speech policies. So we have a number of protections against bullying, bullying and harassment online, and we will see some of what those are. Right. So the first thing that we need to remember here is that we have different, like we have different tiers in hate speech. Here we distinguish between different categories of people. First point, we distinguish between public figures and private individuals. Why? Because we want to allow discussion, which often includes critical commentary on people who are featured in the news. These are public figures. So, in other words, public figures have a slightly less protection than private individuals, and private individuals have a way more protection from police. Second, we recognize that bullying harassment can have more of an emotional impact on minors. So we take that very, very seriously. There is very heightened protection for users between the age 13 and 18. As you already know, users have to be at least 13 years of age for them to create an account on our platforms. But we take harassment of minors very, very seriously, and they have heightened. Third, context and intent really matter. Sometimes people say some things rather frivolously in humorous context, or in the context of satire, for instance. This makes it a little difficult for us to decide what to do or not, but we have protections there. But what we need to do here is that we allow people to share and reshare posts as long as it is clear that it is to condemn or draw attention to bullying and harassment. So the same thing as we saw in hate speech, I might post something that looks like harassment content, but basically to raise awareness, saying, hey, this is happening somewhere else, and I condemn it. No, I don't like this. It should not be that. So those kinds of posts, for obvious reasons, we do not take that. Let me try and run you through a bunch of these policies very quickly, just to show what kind of nuances that we have. As we saw in the previous slides, there are three categories that we already see. One, public figures. Second, private individuals. Third are children and minors. So the first bullet point that you see is included for public figures. It is calls for self-injury or suicide. Any attacks through derogatory terms related to sexual activity and statements of intent to engage in sexual activity with others, right? Usually in the context of curse words. Now, basically, that this is severe bullying, severe harassment that we take it down for all individuals, including for public figures. The second category that we remove for all private individuals is any content sexualized in another adult, negative physical descriptions, for example, ugly, fat, etc. We will see some examples again, and comparisons to animals of interest that are culturally perceived as inferior, cow, monkey, or potato, or vegetable. Again, for obvious reasons, we remove this, but we remove this only for private individuals. Why do we do that? Because we want people to talk about, to discuss certain things about public figures, and this might be restricted to that one. Now, what do we do for children? As we said, the protections here are we use the physical bullying without condemning caption. We remove that. Any kind of negative character being like the things that this child is dumb, or this child is not intelligent, etc. That kind of content we carefully look at. We remove allegations about criminal or illegal behavior. If there's an allegation against a minor, say they committed a crime, then let's see some examples. Trigger warning again. The first one on the left, the minister should go hang himself. So as you saw previously, that we take self-injury and suicide claims very, very seriously. And we think even for public figures that this cannot be allowed to be revoked. Whereas on the right-hand side, you will see that says Minister X is a corrupt man with a criminal past, but he's still standing for election. Now this is discussion about a public figure. People might agree with this opinion or disagree with this opinion, but we do not consider this as corruption. The next example, Minister X is a swine. This might be surprising for some people, but we allow this. This is again to protect some speech around public figures, but private individuals have way more protections against very similar content. For example, on the right, it says, my high school teacher, Mr. Y, is ugly like a rat. Now this we do not allow because Mr. Y is not a public figure, but it's an individual, and we remove most kinds of bullying and harassment. Right? For minors, we don't have to think about it, we will smoke that as well. Okay, so we've covered hate speech, we've covered bullying and harassment, and now we have with us voter interference and electoral violence policy. So this we called out specifically for the event. We have a number of voter suppression, interference, and electoral violence policy. But if you go to the Transparency Center, you might not see them in these words. It will not be categorized separately because they come under different categories, including violence, incitement, misinformation, and a very category called coordinating harm and committing crime. So most of these policies that we are going to talk about right now will come under those. Okay, so let's see what kind of election-related content specifically that we allow and we don't. We do not allow voter interference on Facebook, which includes misrepresentation of the following. Now we are slowly getting into misinformation territory, which we did not see so far in hate speech and bullying and harassment. And I will come to that after this, especially to talk about what kind of misinformation we remove or we don't. The first thing is we remove misrepresentation of date, location, times, and methods for voting or voting registration. We remove this as long as we know for sure that it has been announced by the government agencies in that particular country. Second, any misrepresentation of who can vote and the qualifications for voting. For instance, let's take an example of you can vote only if you have a bachelor's degree, right? In most countries, this is, and probably in all countries, this is not true. And this is something that is taken up. Number three, whether a vote will be counted and what information and or materials must be provided in order to vote. What kind of content can be removed here? For instance, if there is a report that says, you have to present your birth certificate in order to vote, and that is not true, again, it is not true, then we will. And if it says, if you are of a certain age, anyone between 18 years of age and 23 years of age, if you go and vote, your vote will not be counted. And it is not true in that country. Again, in most countries, it is not true. We will. So, misrepresentation of critical information about elections that can suppress voters will be removed. We also remove misrepresentations about whether a particular candidate is running or not. Let's say there's a post that says a particular candidate is running for the presidency of Prime Minister of Thailand, and that person is not, then we will remove. We're going into certain details, slightly more in detail into this than the other sections, because obviously we are in the context of elections. So bear with me, but this is fairly critical information that I believe the group here will be interested. We do not allow offers to buy or sell votes with the cash gifts. I'm rather, if I post on Facebook saying, hey, me and my family is available to vote for anyone as long as you give me, I don't know, 3 lakh rupees, we will remove it. That is not allowed offers to buy or sell votes with cash gifts. We also do not allow statements that advocate or gives instructions
हामी
to
सानो दललाई ठिक छ
illegally participate in a voting process. If I put out a note with details how I can vote twice in an election, that will be, that's not allowed policy. So COVID has complicated a lot of things in our lives, and one of the things that it has definitely complicated is content moderation as well. We worked overtime to include a lot of COVID aspects in our already fairly well detailed policy, and one of that is using COVID in content related to elections and voter suppression. So, explicit claims that participation in the voting process will lead to vote or any other community policies, for instance, will be removed. So, there is a distinction. You should say, you will see an example. We would remove content which says, you know what, if you vote in this election, you'll get voted. Because that is not true. But if the content basically cautions you against contracting COVID and asks you to take certain measures, that is fine. But if it is clear that that is not the case, say, and the content basically the next election itself is COVID, which can discourage people, people remove that next one. Right. So, a lot of these that we saw so far were fairly straightforward and the vote interference policy. Because they were talking about misrepresentation of information that is already clear. But there are certain kinds of content where we need additional context or information, right? So these are some of these things that we disallow when we have additional context. First, calls for coordinated interference. So what do we mean by coordinated interference that affect an individual's ability to vote or participate in the election? An example would be, my friends and I will be monitoring the neighborhood and erect checkpoint to make sure only our party's followers get to vote and nobody else can vote. So something like this will not be allowed, and we will remove. So this is what we call as call for coordinated interference. Number 2, content stating that voting participation may or will result in law enforcement consequences. We've seen a lot of this content and we've removed it. This is basically intimidation tactics, again, to influence voters to not go and vote. For instance, if it says, if a post says, voting is a tool of intimidation by the government, again, anyone who goes to vote could be caught by police and jailed. Now, this is what we call as voting participation resulting in law enforcement consequences. This will not be allowed. We might need a little bit of additional context, but we will. Calls to monitor election activity when combined with signals of violence, right? So if something says like, let's go to the voting station, there will be war now, or let's battle it out at the voting booth. So things like this, where there are clear signals of election activity and voting, and there is a signal for violence. We might need a little bit of a context here, but we do not allow. We are almost there. I know this can be a little overwhelming. Again, the intention here is not to understand each and every policy. All of this information is there in the Transparency Center and the community standards. What I'm going to do is to give you a flavor of this, immerse you in the policy making process and the kind of policy that we have for a few minutes, and then get all of that, so that you develop that language and the vocabulary and the flavor for the kind of policies that we have. Again, all of this is in the transparency. Now we are starting to talk about violence specifically, and certain things that are quite obvious why it should not be allowed. The first one, threats of violence related to voting, voter registration, or the outcome of an election. What does this mean? If it says if a candidate X wins, I will go and beat the voters up, or beat the burn out the election booth. This is a threat of violence, and it is connected to an election, and we will not allow this under any circumstances. The second one, statements to bring weapons to polling places or locations used to count votes or administer elections. Voting booths, counting booths, as well as any election-related office, if we see content to bring weapons to these places, we do not allow it, and we will remove it. And any threats against election officials will also be removed and will not be tolerated. We have very low tolerance for these things. Okay, example time. I don't think you will see a lot of triggering or disturbing content here, but this should hopefully put to rest most of the questions that have come to your mind in the last 4 to 5 minutes when you were looking at the voting threshold. Example 1. Voting for the presidential elections has been postponed. It will not take place online in August. Will we remove this or not? We will remove this if this is not true. If this is false, this is misrepresentation of when voting will take place, when elections will take place, so we will remove it. Example 2, the election officials need to be shown who's the boss. Let's pick up space and go meet them. The most obvious one, the very last policy that we saw, this is a threat against election officials. This will not be allowed whatsoever. Third example, there are allegations of widespread rigging of votes. The country and its people deserve free and fair elections. This is allowed, and why is it allowed? Why will we not remove this? Because it doesn't necessarily, actually does not cause or misrepresent anything connected to the election. It is more of an opinion, which says there are allegations of rigging, and we need free and fair elections. This is discussion and the kind of political speech that we actually protect to this opinion. So we'll go through all of the rapid fire series of examples. The one on the left, in the red background, is violating content that people not allowed. The one on the right, the green background, is something very similar, but there is a subtle but a very clear distinction why we allow the content on the right. The first one, it's illegal to vote in person. Misrepresentation of voting procedures. So we will remove this. I think it's better to vote by mail than person. Now there's a subtle distinction here, but it is clear that it is somebody's opinion that it's better to vote by mail than well. So that is not the certification of voting procedures, so that will be allowed. If you are a minority, of course, the previous example, if voting by mail is not allowed in a particular country, or if it is not one of the procedures, then of course it will be taken up for miscommunication. If you are a minority, your vote won't be counted. This is again exclusion and false representation of who can vote. This will be removed from the right to boycott the elections. This is basically someone saying, hey, boycott the elections for whatever reason, and that will be allowed. It's not the representation of the procedure. This is what I mentioned to you about COVID. Very interesting example. Voting means you'll get COVID, right? Nothing can be more clear than that. Basically says you vote, you'll get COVID. Which is not true, it will be removed. On the right, it's a slightly nuanced version of that. It says, I'm worried about getting COVID, I'm not removed. Which it basically says, implies that there is a possibility that you might get COVID if you go to vote. And it also says that in the first version, so that will be allowed. It is not equal to someone saying, don't go vote because you will get COVID. Selling my vote for $100 is violating for the simple reason that I'm selling my vote, and that is something that we do not allow. Whereas on the right, it doesn't cause that it's criticizing for party, obviously. If my party loses, let's burn down the parliament. This is the violent section of the whole experience policy that I basically says that there's a certain kind of outcome, then I'm going to resort to violence. This will not be tolerated, we won't allow it. On the right, it says the election was unfair, or we deserve better. For whatever reason, this person feels this way, and we will allow. Sorry?
Raghav, can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's Aisha. Hi. Sorry, we're running a little short on time, so we have 10 more minutes to wrap up.
That sounds good.
Okay.
I will not object. Quickly, in terms of misinformation, let me go through what kind of misinformation that they remove. You already know and you've already seen some kind of misinformation that we remove of election procedures, timing, and examples. But this is generally our framework. First part is we remove certain kinds of content and accounts that violate our community standards, including misinformation, which can contribute to risk of imminent physical harm or violence. So this is what is most important for you to keep in mind. That is, if there is misinformation that we can clearly connect to risk of imminent physical harm or violence, we will remove it. This is besides, of course, the misrepresentation of voting information that we just saw. And why do we not remove all kinds of misinformation? This is something misinformation, right? Something is false, and why is Telegram allows us content. We will eventually see why. The second is reduce some kind of misinformation that do not necessarily lead to physical harm or violence. We reduce it. And the third strategy that we use is to inform people. So some kind of misinformation by giving people more context and sending them resources to read, they can decide what to read, trust, and share, so that we don't necessarily tell them what's right or wrong, because it might not be you, but this is a more information and probably think outside the bubble that we are in right now. Why do we not report this information? We are not graphical students. We do not think anyone should be we don't decide what's true or what's wrong, except in very few situations, like what we saw, misrepresentation of certain election videos. Now, the second point is it will require us to do the work everything we want, which is just not possible, right? So we will get into a serious one, and that's why we don't policy. Okay. The third one, which is the most difficult, is philosophically important. It's not all true or false. There can be some there can be some degrees of different opinions on what is true and what is wrong. I will steal one example, a very interesting example from a colleague of mine, which explains this quite well. This example it says, my uncle Akshay cooks really well, right? Absolutely innate and possibly inconsequential opinion of Raghav, which says my uncle Akshay cooks really well. But let's see what different levels of misinformation can be in that. We need to verify if I actually have an uncle. We need to verify this name is Akshay. We need to verify if he cooks at all. And number three, we need to verify if he cooks well. Right? So the first thing that is, if we have access to all the information and resources, we might be able to verify. Now the third is the third point here, which is cooks well, who decides who cooks well. And the different degrees and opinions on the cooking. So just a light example to demonstrate how difficult this policy can be on. We work with over 80 fact-checking organizations, over 60 languages globally to raise violence in our platform, and that's how we're able to take certain violence rates, particularly very serious. And that's where I think I will stop. There's a small section on reporting content which I can run through very quickly, which is anyone can report content, you can report it, I can report it, anyone can report content on Facebook and Instagram. You just have to click the 3 dots on any comment or any post, and then the procedure is fairly self-explanatory. The reporting is 100% confidential, double knowledge, your reports who reported it. There's one myth that if mass reporting has a certain kind of stuff, if 100 people report specific content, then it will be taken down. That is not true. Even if a specific kind of content is reported 100 times, we will do the same kind of assessment that we do for content that is reported once. That is with respect to our policies and decide whether our reporting, whether it is violating content or not. And in most cases, allow users to appeal on either remote or not. So that's where I will stop. Thank you for this. I will hand it back to Rebecca and I will take forward. Thank you.